One really fun thing about the Uplifters podcast is that sometimes I get to have up close and personal conversations with women I've admired from afar for years or even decades. Today's episode is a wonderful example of this. It took place live on stage at our second annual Uplifters Live event in New York City, surrounded by so many incredible uplifters, all there to lift each other up, to have deep, meaningful conversations, and to explore how to get and stay courageous in this weird, wild world that we're living in, friends. We had women from ages 13 to 73 with a surprise guest, none other than Sandra Bookman. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. For me, it's just a dream come true to be joined by none other than the legend, the icon, Sandra Bookman. So, if you live in New York, you know Sandra because she truly is a part of the fabric of New York.
Let's first dispel the icon and legend thing. I work with some legends, but I'm not one of them.
I mean, let's talk then about how you would define that.
I think I'm just old. No. And you know what? Okay, Aransas' husband is in the business, so you know, sometimes we don't last long in the business because it's fickle. And I've been here for a long time.
27 years,
yeah,
I think, at
it's
WABC.
like dog years, so.
Instant icon.
Yeah, okay. We had a conversation about this in the newsroom, believe it or not, yesterday, because I was reading a copy editing a script I had to read. And I said to my co-anchor, why the hell do they keep writing icon? You know, no. And the person was important, so I won't say who it was, but I said, it's not, I wouldn't call her an icon. They're people, so I changed it. That's just my being.
What did you change it to?
I think I said she was a champion for whatever, the causes that but it's like saying hero over and over, and we are guilty of saying it. And I'm not saying people aren't doing important things and great things, but maybe they're just being a human being, not necessarily a hero.
Yeah.
I know. I think that's being sensitive.
No, I like where you're going with that, because to me, what it says is that it is a role that we can all play.
Yeah. But also, I think language means something a lot of times, and we have a tendency, hyperbole. It's, everything is super, like I'm fantastic. I'm a supermodel. I'd love for somebody to say that about me. Not going to happen. Me and my 5'4", probably actually 5'3" self.
We don't need I think, though, in some ways, being a resilient human being is even more impressive.
Yeah. The truth of the matter is, I think that most of us are resilient. The thing is, you can say, you've been here 26 years. I think it's 27, and it may actually be today is my anniversary, and which is kind of weird.
That's kind of amazing. I love that.
I think it is today that I got here in New York. But I think that most of us are resilient. People see me on TV every day, so you get credit for things that you don't really deserve credit for, because people just sort of, God, she's been there a long time. Man, she's working hard. God, she did all the shows today. And that's true. But I'm no more resilient than the woman who, somebody else that's working at the station. You don't see her on air, but she's there every day doing her job. She goes home. Now she's taking care of her kids, and she's helping with homework, and she's finding whatever her husband can't find in the house, and she's figuring out what people are going to take for lunch the next morning, and she's getting her clothes ready the next morning, and she gets up and gets everybody dressed. I mean, that's every single day. I don't do any of that because it's just me and my shoes. And I do have a husband now, but me and my shoes. So I don't see myself as being much more resilient than probably most of the people sitting in this room, because everybody has their own load to carry. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's such an important and beautiful and generous point to make.
I just think it's the truth.
But it's really easy to think that we are the center of the universe as human beings.
Well, I am the center of my universe. My husband knows that. I say that jokingly because for a long time I probably was, because I wasn't married. I don't have children. I have lots of nieces and nephews, but I don't have kids. And I made that decision when I was 6. I know that's crazy, right? But it's truth. I wanted Barbie dolls. I wanted fashion. I didn't want diapers. Work was everything. It just really was everything because I loved my job. I was so happy to be able to do this thing that I decided I was going to do as a kid in Texas in a little town where we had the streets in my town were dirt roads. So I'm not embarrassed to say they're paved now. But it's a small town right outside of Houston, right between Houston and Galveston. And this was just my dream to live in New York City. And the first dream was that I was going to be in a Broadway play and I was going to be in the chorus and somebody was going to discover me and then I was to become a star. I don't know. I read that somewhere or It was in some old 1930s movie. But that was what I had in my head. And then journalism sort of came into my life. And when I was in high school, a teacher was actually my debate coach. We were very close. And, I was trying to figure out what am I going to do? The acting, I don't think I can sing okay. I dance okay, but I don't think I'm pretty enough. I don't know if I'm talented enough. What are my skills? It was this whole thing. And we were talking one day and she goes, well, you know what? You're always, because I got to read the newspaper. My parents, I grew up, you got to know what's going on. And she said, have you thought about broadcast journalism? You're a great writer, because I'd write some of my speeches and debates and competitions I was involved with. And so I went home and I watched Channel 13 in Houston, which is also a Disney station, by the way. And I'm on brand here. And I said, you know what, Mom, I think I want to be on TV. And my mother said, okay, go in and clean your room up. That is not a joke. That's what she said to me. And so from that moment, I said, this is what I was going to do. And that was it. Because I felt it, that I had the skill set, the interest, and I was going to do it in New York City.
Wow.
Eventually.
Wow. Well, and I think there is a real tension there between two things that you said. One being, I'm going to be discovered.
No.
Right? And I think as little girls, many of us were raised to get really pretty and really smart and really good. And then somebody would see us across a room and say, you.
Yeah.
And we'd feel seen and validated, and then we could step into our light. And so there was that fantasy. And then there was the reality of, this is what I'm going to do. So what did the I'm going to make it happen look like?
I was thinking last night, I was like, what am I going to talk to them about? I honestly hate talking about myself.
I noticed that. I tried to do some research and I found out you're from Beaumont. That's it.
Yeah, Beaumont is totally incorrect information, but security folks said years ago at one of the jobs said, don't even correct it. Let them think what they want. Wrong birth date, wrong hometown, everything. That's fine with me. Said it makes it easier. I'm actually from a small town called Dickinson, Texas. Beaumont, another small town in Texas, was my first job, my first TV job. I always say it's like, well, I'm not going to say what I say. Then? No, but Beaumont is right on the border between Texas-Louisiana border. And that was my first TV job. So somehow over the years, everybody said, oh, she's from Beaumont. And I was just like, okay.
I'm from Port Aransas.
Yeah, I know. That's where Texans.
Down the coast.
Okay. Right on the Gulf, though.
Exactly.
Right? On the Gulf of Mexico.
So now that we've cleared that up, back to how you went from fantasy to reality.
I was thinking about it last night because I was like, I got to talk about this. I got to figure out things, I'm a sort of a goal-oriented person, and it started really early when I was a little girl, and I really don't know where that comes from. My mother's personality was that if it needed to be done, she was going to do it, and she might complain about it a little bit, but it was going to get done. She was going to move on to the next thing. So I do have that part of her. My dad was just he's just, he's been perpetual motion since I was a kid, always working. He always had to be busy. If he wasn't working at home, actually his job, he worked for an oil company in Texas. He was in middle management. We owned another business, auto body shops, and he was working that. He was mowing the lawn. I mean, just always working. So I had that thing I think I got from both of them. And once I got into school, I'm from the era, as a Black woman, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. So you coming out of that time period when there were so many things that were opening up for Black people in America and women and opportunities. And it was just drilled into me and my sisters. You can do what you want. You can be anything you want. You need to get your education. So I was one of those people that, I took it all to heart because you got it from the people in the church. We were a big Baptist family. And, and the family friends. And early on, we discovered that I obviously can talk, but I was a really good student. And so I got it in my head that I'm going to be somebody. It sounds silly saying it now, but when you're a little kid, it was the inspiration that I needed. And so I set goals for myself in school. It just sounds so crazy, but it's the truth. 3rd grade, I knew there was an award in the 5th grade for the best student in my school, and I was going to win it. I didn't tell anybody that, but I had it in my head. And I did. It is just so weird because I remember I was telling this story, my dad, seeing my parents come to the school, it was the middle of the afternoon, and we were having this big assembly, and I saw my mom and dad there. It was weird. And you only saw your parents if you had done something. And my parents showed up at school if I didn't behave right. Mostly wasn't me, it was my sisters. But I saw them. And so I knew I won. I know it sounds so crazy, but I did. And that was like a first goal. And then it went from there to junior high school, whether it was running for class president, being a cheerleader. I'm just a goal-oriented person. It used to bother me if I didn't get what I want. And I didn't get mad at other people. I always thank God I had that. I wasn't envious I can envy some people, but I wasn't jealous. I wasn't mean-spirited. It just meant I had to work harder. If I didn't get it, it was because I didn't do something. That's just the way my mind worked. I pretty much feel like all the goals, not all of them, but most of the goals that were truly important in school, I set for myself. And it just kept to college. Once I decided I was doing this, I'm doing this. And then sometimes you had to shift gears. Maybe this wasn't the thing for me, or I didn't get it. And I was able to talk myself down off the ledge of whatever that disappointment was to move on to the next thing. And a lot of it was my mother. My mom was no joke. I lost my mother 2 years ago. And honestly, the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And I fought like cats and dogs when I was growing up until I was about 25. And I mean cats and dogs. It's just crazy. Then I got to the point where I just couldn't live, without her. So that's been really hard to get past as an old woman. But it was my mom. She just was encouraging, and you got down about something and she would say, snap out of it. You've got more important things to, she just had a way of pushing you to focus on the next thing, focus on, yourself, not what you think you messed up or what you lost. And it just sort of kept my head on straight, if that makes sense. And I'm still goal-oriented now. I've run out of goals. Well, I have a goal. $1 billion in a retirement. But everybody in here has that goal, right?
I believe you will get there.
Not the billion.
It may not look exactly what you what you expect, right? And there are 2 things I'm really taking from your story. One is a complete absence of a victim mindset.
No, I've been I'd like to call myself a victim sometimes, but then I just keep it moving because what am I complaining about? And I really mean that. Yeah. I can whine with the best of them, but I do sort of have that ability to snap out of it and get on with it. Mm-hmm. I'm a little British, I think.
A little British.
There's probably some British in there.
I think I'm a little Irish. I like to tell a long story about it. But I think that lack of a victim mindset so often comes with a sense of self-empowerment and self-reliance and an ability to manage what's in front of us, which is the other piece of what I'm taking from you is that, things aren't going to go the way we expect.
No, they don't. And as an adult, that is because I think I have sort of a force of nature. I can make it right. It's probably why I had so many bad relationships as a young woman, because I could be in a room with 20 men. 19 of them are terrific. That 20th, the fool, that is the one I would pick. Every time. I would pick him and I'm going to fix him. I don't know. Now, he had to be cute, though. But
that part wasn't bad.
No, that part wasn't bad. And inevitably, it was a disaster. But I just had this thing, I can fix it. I stopped that though.
I'm glad. You deserve that.
The maturity.
Yeah. Like, look, a good person is also interesting.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was able to recognize it when it,
And I'm sure he's very handsome too.
To me.
And I think the other thing then that I'll pull out of this is this idea that things don't look like what we expect, but they may meet the need that we were looking to meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So you may not get $1 billion retirement. I hope you do. But what is $1 billion retirement? Like what would that give you?
The funny thing is that I throw the $1 billion out there. Obviously, I'm joking. For me, retirement, when I say that, the reason I even mention the money is because it is one of the things that I am struggling with as I work toward the last few years of really working. This thing I have about to take care of other people, mostly family members. As I said, I lost my mom, and 2 years ago, my dad is still living, thank God, and driving us bananas. But he's 84. He has multiple myeloma, which is a cancer that's incurable. It's in remission, but it's sort of a day-to-day thing. And I feel responsible for taking care of not only him, and he's, financially fine, but I have 3 younger sisters and I have a younger brother, and they're all adults. I talk about them as if they're teenagers. But in the back of my mind, because I'm the oldest, if you hadn't figured that out, I know there's some firstborns in here. And I know I'm a classic firstborn. But I feel like I want to, even when I'm not working, the income is steady, that I still need to be able to. The thing is I know that that's not really my responsibility. So intellectually, I know it, but I am sort of working through you got to let some of that go. Because if you don't, you're going to be working till you're 85. So that is the struggle in myself right now. That's one of the ones my husband keeps going, you can quit now. You can quit. We can move to Italy. You can quit. And I'm like, not yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think for a lot of women, that is part of feeling a sense of safety and control, to feel like we can take care of everything.
Yeah.
If you give women 50 plates and 10 hats to wear simultaneously, we will stack that shit up.
Oh, I know. And juggle it all.
And juggle it and only be upset when we drop one, and then we'll blame ourselves and be like, what's wrong with you?
Exactly. Yep.
With this strong sense of responsibility, how do you manage kindness toward yourself?
I'm not always very kind to myself.
Thank you for being honest about that.
I probably like a lot of high-strung women. You're going, doing everything. And then, like you said, you drop the plate and it's your fault when you're like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have been juggling 15 plates to begin with.
Why does nobody in your family know how to juggle a plate? Because you were juggling them all.
Yes, and honestly, that is a big thing. I just keep calm and carry on. As I've gotten older, I just acknowledge that I can't do some things anymore. I mean, again, it's in the back of my mind because I'm trying to beat myself up. But thank God, as my mom would say, I learned some sense. She'd say it like that. And realize you can't do all this. And if you can't do it, there's no reason you can't ask somebody for help, and no reason you can't say no, which I've learned in the last 5 years, I would say, to say no to things, because I would say yes to everything coming my way. Work things, I still say yes to too many work things, but things associated with work, speaking engagements, because honestly, I feel so lucky to do what I do, to work in this city. I just feel really blessed because a lot of people don't get a chance to do the thing that they dreamed of doing, to live in the place they wanted to live, to see all the things that I've seen, to experience the things I've experienced, to meet the people I've met, to work with some of the smartest people on the planet, to actually, when shit, excuse the expression, hit the fan, to not be home wondering what's going on, but to be doing my part, whatever that is, whether it's, on the street telling people what's going on, sitting on the set, explaining to people, trying to make it so that, they have a real sense of what's happening and understand. I mean, I feel privileged to do that. So my feeling was I should be saying yes. I have to be giving back. And this costs me nothing except I don't sleep very well. I'm always tired. And so finally I started saying, okay, you got to say no. It doesn't mean you don't care, but you can't do all that stuff. And, I'm not 30, which my husband keeps telling me. He keeps reminding me,
we liked him.
You're not 30 anymore. No. I will say he's younger than me too. He ain't 30 young, but he's younger than me.
You don't judge.
No, that's a baby. But he will remind me, what are you doing? And that has been really helpful for me because I know he has my best interest and it's not about controlling me, which he absolutely can't do. I think he's okay with that. He sees it that I will just keep working myself to death. And my mother had that streak too, and my dad. So as we say in Texas, oh, he got it honest.
Mm-hmm. He come by it honest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And I think, of course, we change throughout the course of our lives and we learn and we grow. But hopefully along the way, we learn to show ourselves the grace that we show everyone else.
Yeah. I think it's important because you got to take care of yourself. How are you taking care of other people and you can't take care of yourself? You're not going to be able to do all that. And so I have learned over the years to take a minute and stop, whatever that is. If it just means reading or traveling or saying I'm exercising, but not really. And I know that's really bad, but not drinking too much because that doesn't solve anything. But just the right amount does take the edge off. It's just, okay.
Yeah, finding that balance there in all things. Enough rest, but not too much.
Yeah, well, there's no such thing as enough rest.
Yeah, not in your business especially.
You have, 2 daughters?
I do, but actually, except for last night, I mostly sleep pretty well.
Well, then you must be doing something right.
I mean, I'm turning 50 today. I'm not turning, I am 50 today.
Oh my God, happy birthday.
Thanks.
That's
on your
right.
anniversary. And, like the menopause bug is like crawling up, right? And so that is the part I'm most afraid of is
You'll
the
be
not
fine.
sleeping part.
Yeah, well, I've not slept well my whole life. Again, my parents. My dad sleeps 2 hours. He's fine. I would do that. I used to do it all the time. I can't do that anymore. If I have to, I can do it. If I'm working and I have something to focus on, but I try not to do it because I can't really function. I can't think. But you will be fine. You will be fine. Let me tell you, I didn't think I was going to be fine. And I didn't even want to tell anybody. I know it sounds crazy because I felt I have issues with age. It's my issue. Nobody else's. It's issues with my age. That's it. And so I didn't even want to talk about, going through menopause. I had girlfriends, but I was just basically sucked it up, did what I needed to do, took, advice from the doctor and knew that this too would pass. And it did.
Yeah. And I think too, every time we get to hear somebody say, you're going to be okay.
I promise you, it's just another phase. And you keep on living. All the things that I just thought, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? How can I do it? How can I deal with that? It's kind of one of those things. It is, and this is natural. It's not some man-made catastrophe. It's just a natural, and it's just, you're just moving from one phase to the other. Yes, some things do change, but that's life. The important thing is that you get on the other side and keep it moving.
That's right. And that you embrace what is instead of trying to hold on to what was.
And it doesn't change who you are. I think that's underlying, at least for me, that, who am I? I can't have babies anymore. You don't even have children. You didn't want, what are you talking about? I think my mother said that to me. And I was like, okay, you're right. After she said, well, you never know what God has in store for you. Sarah had a baby when she was 100. I was like, Sarah was in the Bible. What? It was just, it was like one of those, I was like, what are you talking about, Mama? Basically, she was just trying to get me to realize how ridiculous I was sounding. But she understood.
Yeah, I think though we all have that tendency, right? Mm-hmm. To hold on to what was, to hold on to old dreams. And one of the things I think that we can do for ourselves that is the biggest gift is to say what's right for right now.
Yeah, but it's a day-to-day thing. You don't have to even make a decision about that. I'm saying this now. My husband go, did you say that? Was that you? Because I behave exactly the opposite. It's a fire every time I want something or I have to deal with something, at least in my head for a few minutes.
Yeah. And maybe that's just part of the process
Mm-hmm.
is to have the fire to get to the calm. Yeah. This has been really exciting to have Sandra here, hasn't it? I think your job is so interesting and that you really have helped millions of New Yorkers over the last 27 years navigate some of the toughest moments of our collective existence. A calm presence.
I appreciate that.
A voice of wisdom. A voice of...
I don't know about the wisdom. That's kind of like the icon.
Icon, okay. Well, you know what? You did it your way. And you've always brought your own unique stamp to your storytelling. And you've made us feel a little bit safer, a little bit better informed. I'm watching the New Yorkers in the room, nod along, especially those who are old enough to have had televisions. And you've helped us all find our way through those moments.
I hope so. I really do love this city. I think that it is just we got some issues, not surprising for the times, but it is just this magnificent place of energy. And a lot of times to me, it feels like it's what you'd want the world to feel like, unless you're sitting in traffic on Broadway in Soho and wondering why the hell is there one lane? What is that?
I don't know.
But other than that, I love it. Yeah. And it's just every neighborhood has its own flavor. And one of the things I loved about being on the street is that because I don't believe you can really, it's hard to sit as a reporter. You sit at the anchor desk, which is great. Yeah. And on the street. Thank you. It's how you get to know the city. You report on Throgs Neck or Bay Ridge or Brownsville or East New York. And if you don't go there, how do you know? I'm not saying I'm an expert on them, but it's important for me to go there to see who people are, how they live, how the housing is different, find the best sandwich shop. It sounds weird, but I also think that if you're going to work in the city like this and do what we do, people need to see you in their neighborhood. Because then they have a feeling that you at least have a half an idea of what you're talking about. That is just really important to me personally. And believe me, I would love to sit on the anchor desk every day with my lipstick on and my hair combed and somebody else doing it. And now I think I've gotten old enough. But I really loved that. I do miss that sometimes.
I think that is a perfect way to close this out because we started today with what I called a poo-poo platter. And we brought up people who had different lived experiences to talk about moments of courage in their lives so that we could sample and taste one another's experiences. And so much of what scares me about these times, what feels most alarming, is our lack of curiosity about one another and the assumptions we heap on each other. And we just make up human beings based on our own imagination and the movie we saw or the story
social
we heard,
media.
Right?
I mean, and I'm not blaming
media.
The
You're absolutely right.
Problems on social media, but I think we only have a tendency now to read that's already in agreement with us, reinforces what we think. We go to a few sources and you're hearing it over and over and over. If you're lucky, the source is positive and factual. The problem is most of it's not. And people seem to have a hard time differentiating between, even when it's fantastical. What is this? People blood-sucking something, movie stars in Hollywood. I'm like, but people really believe that. I don't know how that. I still can't understand how some of the things people really start to believe. If you're in an echo
chamber, though, and you're hearing that reinforced, you start to believe it.
But Haitians eating dogs.
I mean.
First of all, anybody can say anything.
Yes.
The thing is, you believed it? That's just bizarre. I use that because it became the basis for a lot of other just craziness. That scares me.
It scares me, too. And I think we need to get out of our own echo chambers and we need to hear other people's stories and we need to go into other neighborhoods. We need to go into other towns. We need to go into the places where we're making assumptions and reconnect as human beings. And so to have you here in this room with us in real life and off the screen is freaking awesome, Sandra Bookman.
You're so sweet. Thank you, Frances.
And I promise I won't call you an icon or a legend to your face again.
No, I'm not offended. I'm just like, I can't live up to that.
I was at an event last year with Andre DeShields, and he introduced himself. He was like, I go by the pronouns icon, legend, god of theater.
Well, you know what? He actually can. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Uplifters podcast. If you're getting a boost from these episodes, please share them with the Uplifters in your life, and then join us in conversation over at theuplifterspodcast.com. Head over to Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast, and follow, and rate our show. It'll really help us connect with more uplifters, and it'll ensure you never miss one of these beautiful stories. Mwah! Big love.
Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwell in the perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree in springtime. Dance with idle hindsight, bring the sun to twilight. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up.
Beautiful. I cried. It's that little thing you did with your voice.
Right, in the pre-chorus, right?
I was like...
Mommy, stop crying. You're disturbing the peace.